Okay, soil structure. Page 60 in the textbook shows you some of the different structures that soils will have, depending on the type of parent material it comes from. We have some that are very platy. In other words, they come off in flakes. They come off, they're flat and large surface area but very thin flakes. It's called platy soils. Others we have that are granular. They come out like grains, more roundish type. Others will be prismatic or columnar. They've been born, a lot of basalts that way, where it's been formed, and as it cools off, it cools in columns. And then as it breaks up and deteriorates over time by the weathering of the parent material, it breaks off in these little prism or columnar chunks that come out of the particular parent material that you started with. And then we have others, like some just fragment off, so you get very irregular, sharp, jagged surfaces as the parent material decomposes. And it depends on how the decomposition occurred. Freezing and thawing are going to cause very rough and fractured results. If it's water that's causing the deterioration, it's going to make much smoother particles. And if it's wind blowing and it blows around and around and around a lot, then it's going to be very smooth. If it doesn't get a lot of movement, if it doesn't roll and so on and tumble over other particles, it's going to remain pretty sharp. A good example of that is different qualities of sand, because it's big enough particles we can really see sand and feel the texture in sand. You can go out in a desert and feel the texture of sand in a desert, and that sand will be very smooth because it blows around and it's rolling across itself, and it's rubbing the sharp edges off of it as it ages. So that sand is like a whole bunch of little itty bitty BBs. They become little round balls. They're rolling around everywhere, and they just keep getting smoother and smoother as they roll around. You go to an area where you have natural sands that occurred off of glaciers and the like, and those sands are very, very rough-edged because they haven't had any movement to them. They've been developed by freezing and thawing and other processes, and they'll be very jagged. And you actually you rub that sand across your hands, you cut your hands with it. They'll be that sharp. If you rub hard with that sand, it'll cut into your skin. Where sand out of a desert, that would never happen. You'd rub as hard as you want, it'll just roll around. Now they love that real sharp sand for things like filters. If we use sand media filters and drip irrigation, we want that real sharp, jagged sand, because as those organic particles come through, it gets hung up on those sharp, jagged edges. We put that nice, fine, round sand in those filters, it doesn't filter out anything. It just rolls around the sides of those round edges and works its way down through the bottom and out into your system, and you haven't filtered out the stuff you wanted to filter. Doesn't get hung up on those sharp edges. We love that sharp edge sand in sand traps because it'll stay fluffed up so that when you hit a golf ball into a sand trap, it'll plug. We want that ability for a ball to plug in a sand trap on a golf course. That's ideal. We don't want to put old desert sand in there because it just ends up being just flat as a pancake, hard as a rock. The ball roll in there and it'll just roll until it finds the bottom part of the trap because there's no fluff to it, and it just becomes like a road in the bottom of that sand trap. You can't keep it fluffed up.
You want beach sand, is that?
Well, depends on the beach. You know, there's a lot of beaches that'll have very fine, smooth sand, and other beaches will have very rough, granular sand. Some of that sand where the volcanoes are flowing into, on Hawaii, the big island there, they have that one volcano where they're getting a lot of lava flow into the ocean. They have some of those black sand beaches, a real coarse sand. You know, that's great coarse sand because it's brand new sand. It's being generated just very recently. Stuff that's been there for eons and being washed and washed on a lot of beaches just as smooth as silk. So it would depend on the age of the sand as to how smooth it would be, sure.
All right.
Somewhat. And then also the method of how it happened, how it was created.